afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Chevelle Savage. I am a board member for OutCT as well as the Education Committee Chairperson. Today, I will be talking to Allie for our Who's in the Neighborhood episode 6. So without further ado, Allie, thank you so much for joining us. I so appreciate it. Let's just get right into it if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All right. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you lived in New London? Are you from New London? Just tell me about who you are. Tell our viewers
Sure.
who you are.
I really appreciate you having me. And it's so I moved to the area. I actually do not live in New London. I live in Essex, Connecticut. And that's a whole long story. And then my studio is based in New London. I have a studio on State Street. And I will confess that my heart is in New London because when I was looking for housing here about 8 years ago, I wanted to live in New London. We couldn't afford it. So we moved to Essex, which sounds really counterintuitive, but that's how it worked for us. And we have a beautiful garden and bees. But my studio, Magik Press, here I have to sit up straight. Is in New London on State Street. And I have been working in New London as a visual artist and art educator and community organizer for, since 2013. Wow, has it been that long? It has. Yeah, so I started showing in 2013 there and got to know some artists there and got to know the queer community there. Like I said, my heart is here. And I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, which has a lot of beautiful old architecture. And I also kind of love like the hospitality of the South. We can have a long conversation about things I don't like about the South, but one of the things is that like you walk around and you run into people and you just have conversations, and New London is where that happens for me. And so like that's where I find my community, and I find my studio there, which it's like on the 2nd floor of State Street, right across from Swad Tandoori.
Okay. So you bring up southern charm and things of that nature, and you equated that with New London, and that's interesting because I am a New London transplant. I lived in Virginia for 48 years of my life, and my spouse got a job up here at Connecticut College, and she migrated about 3 years ago, and then I migrated up here 2 years ago. And so I also have a business on State Street. I'm in the Dewart building, but I am from Virginia, honey, and you really can tell in my accent when I get to going and talking and things like that, and when I say y'all and fitna and all these things. So yes, I am truly a Southern belle, and it's interesting that you bring up that there is a sense of camaraderie and warmness and kindness in New London. And so I've seen that as well. So I can say that we live in Old Saybrook, so we're not really too far from you. We lived on campus for 2 years. And so then we moved to Old Saybrook about a year ago. So it's just enough space for me to be able to separate work and not have a long commute, but still be able to kind of like be in the area, right? So wow. So Magik Press. So tell me about your organization, your studio, and how you came up with the name Magik Press.
Okay. So I, just a little background. I studied art in South Carolina, in Rock Hill, South Carolina, Winthrop University, right outside of Charlotte. It's like right on the border of North and South Carolina. And I studied photography there. And then I went to graduate school at RISD when I moved back to the United States almost a dozen years later, maybe more. And while I was studying at RISD, I kind of returned to my roots as a zine maker, and also my roots as like a social justice activist. And so for many years, I was kind of like ingrained into me through art school, maybe. I've thought a lot about this, that art and activism had to be separate pursuits. And really, when I did my master's in art education at RISD in 2016, I got to like start combining those pursuits. And so the name Magik Press, and it's Magic with a K, comes from this like little kind of saying I just started using. I'm also a street artist, so kind of graffiti and hip hop culture and kind of like that kind of having a tag, you know, is kind of part of my voice. And so, you know, magic was what I would say is that art plus feminism equals magic, because I believe that art, like when we can integrate both of like all of ourselves into like art, that's magic. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that like unexplainable brilliance of creation. And I don't want to explain it. But through art we can experience it. So like to me, like I am serious. And I also say that art is magic and I'm a witch, which is it's fun and spooky. And since it's spooky season, I just had to say that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, some of my favorite humans identify as witches, and I actually have some of those on my caseload. So, listen, honey, I'm down for the cause with that. That does not bother me. I'm glad that you let us in to a little bit about yourself about that. So, you know, I've heard you mention when you did your intro to yourself about activism, right? And how important that is for you. So in all that we're dealing with, how have you incorporated your activism within your art, especially in today's climate?
Wow. So like I said, I finished my graduate degree in June of 2006. No, 16. No, 15, 16, 15. I don't know. It was before the Trump election. I don't know. Time is not a straight line. And I'm perceiving that more and more.
It's not, right? Exactly.
But anyway, I was working on, it was 2015, June 2015. I was working on my degree when the build up to the 2016 election, right? And I had really self-identified as a feminist since I was 13. So Magik Press is my praxis, which is like this fun academic word, but I like to use it a lot because praxis equals practice. It's like what I'm doing it. It's like putting my theory into work. You'll appreciate maybe this being Southern, but one of my grandmother's favorite sayings was faith without work is dead. And so
that's right, honey.
Yeah. So the way that I put my theory to practice is by being an educator, by being an art educator, because art is why I have survived to the ripe old age of 40 as a trans, non-binary queer person, you know? And I get a little emotional talking about that. And it's the truth. Art saved my life. And that's why I take it so seriously. And so, you know, if I can share that with other people who are also marginalized and othered, then that is the least that I can do. And so Magik Press, also I work a lot with young people. And so over the summer, I have been kind of collaborating with Hearing Youth Voices, and I have collaborated with Writer's Block, and I'm hoping to be doing something with Fresh soon. And I'm actually been, I can't talk about it too much, but I'm doing an art action this weekend in New Haven, and I'm really excited to be working that. So, you know, like for me, like art is an action of like resistance and teaching it to other people and teaching other people how to like resist you know, this like very scary dominance. That's, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and also, I mean, I just have to, I use my art to name it. And so, you know, I have
Mm-hmm.
to say, you know, like, if we cannot name our oppression and our struggle, and we cannot articulate it either through words or art or movement or whatever, then we cannot fight, like we can't fight it. And so like, that's
Mm-hmm.
where like my art and activism were never separate.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, it was unlearning was really what I did when I integrated them, right? Again.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I love how you brought up that activism can show up in so many different forms, right? And so I think a lot of people, when they hear the word activism or advocacy, they have this big grandiose thought of what it looks like. And it shows up in so many different forms. And the fact that you can incorporate art, such as in zine making, right? Or like
Mm-hmm.
in creating shirts or singings or poster boards and all of that. I love that. And some of my favorite humans also are affiliated with Hearing Youth Voices. So that's some good stuff right there.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's awesome, especially I mean the young people. They definitely are our future, and they definitely are able to speak up and are more vocal about what they need, right, in
Yes.
this present time, which I love. Which I love. That's my prime age in working with folks. My paid job is I therapize for a living, so or I'm a therapist, and so and the age that I really like to work with are college age students, like from 18 to
Mm.
24 or 30, because that's when they're figuring out stuff, right? They're figuring out who they are, what experiences they're dealing with. And I love that because that's what life is. You need to figure it out. You need to figure out what's going on. Try this on, try that on. If it doesn't work, do something different on it. Miss Chevelle is here to affirm you. That's all that matters. You do what you need to do to become a great human. So I'm glad that you are carving out some of your time and your work and intentionally putting it towards that population of folks, that demographic, because it is so important, especially in today's climate. And I also love that you named some of the intersections that you embody, right? Being trans and non-binary and queer and what that looks like. Because a lot of times there isn't a lot of representation around that, right? Especially when it comes to trans folks. It's, I had the opportunity of leading a trans vigil in June, the last day of last Sunday of June, and we talked about that the majority of our people who are dying who identify as trans are Black and brown, and that the average age is 34 to 40. So at 20, you're a middle-aged human. What does that look like,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the fact that you're taking that into account and using that to help heal yourself as well as heal others is awesome. And thank you for that. I appreciate that. And our viewers, we appreciate, I know they will appreciate it as well. And I'm so glad that we have a medium such as Who's in the Neighborhood to get to know that, because I wouldn't have known that about you, right? I would not have known that. So thank you for sharing that. So tell me, how do you know about OutCT? What has been your involvement, and what would you like your involvement to be going forward?
So I know about OutCT. I think honestly, Kia Baird was one of the first people I met when I moved to New London.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just a fabulous human being, just number one. But like, she was very involved in kind of like I saw her at drag shows because that's something I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy, and that was one of the things I really enjoyed about New London is having, like, we used to have actually 2 clubs that did drag shows. One has since closed, but and so I know OutCT for their advocacy. I've attended the
Mm-hmm.
trans visuals, although I did not get to the June one. I think I was doing something else, but I was there.
Okay.
I'm there in spirit. And I have gone to the Born This Way fundraisers at
Mm-hmm.
times, and my friend
Mm-hmm.
Robert, he performs there, and so I'm always there to support. I really love the youth version of OutCT. I would love to teach young people about zines and zine making, because
oh, that's awesome.
yeah, like that's kind of my zines. They're so useful. Like but they're also so personal. Do you know what I mean? Like that a zine can be something that you make only for yourself, or it can be made for your community. And like I have a theory of like zines as just a queer media. Like it's, and I attach zines all the way going back to like abolitionist pamphlets. Because it's about self-publishing, right?
Yes,
and
correct.
Self-publishing, if you think about, goes back to, you know, since it's been coming a lot, critical race theory, you know, with like the Combahee River Collective. Well, nobody would publish them, so they published themselves. And that is like the root of zines, right? Is that we publish ourselves because we know we don't need to go to the academy or the gatekeepers. We don't need gatekeepers. We are our own gatekeepers. Actually, like, we shouldn't be there shouldn't be gatekeepers. No gatekeepers.
I know what you mean. But no, absolutely. I think we would definitely enjoy for you to come and do a zine making workshop with our young people. I think they would enjoy that. And I love the fact that you brought up about self-publishing, right? And that's important, and that it can be so personal, or it could be community-based. So that's awesome. Yes. I'm going to make sure that I share that with the board. So definitely Kia actually introduced me to you, and that's how. And I was like, I need to find queer artists, and Kia was like, oh, you need to get in contact with Ellie. I was like, yes, awesome. When I was talking about my Who's in the Neighborhood. So yes. We love her. We're so proud and happy that she is our president, and she does a phenomenal job in supporting her board, and actually in embracing them and charging them to lead as well. So we appreciate you, Kia. Shout out to you.
Yeah, we do. So she's one of those people. She's like one of those people that's like a connector, I think about. Like, because she just knows everybody, and then is like, you need to meet this and you need to meet that. And that's like, that's magic, right? That's her magic, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And her voice too. Don't get me started.
Ministry. She will, and she will chuckle when she hears me say that. So what are some of your projects that you're working on right now? I know that you said you're doing something that you really can't tell us about, but are there any other things that you're working on?
Like, do you know?
Oh, this won't be released until probably next week.
Okay. Well, I can tell you a little bit about what I'm working on currently. I am, I'm getting ready to make my own, publish a little mini zine on wheat pasting. And that connects up with the project that I'll be working on. I'm doing an art action. And the reason I don't want to share too much of it is because it's important to me that some of this work is anonymous. You know, like, do something good and don't get caught. That sort of, I have that,
yes.
You know, and so I work in portraiture a lot, and I work in a media portraiture. I take pictures of people. Sometimes the person I take pictures of is myself. That's actually a big part of like the camera and the lens and making images. Like self-portraits have been really a huge part of my like integrating my non-binary identity in like a really healthy way, you know? And art too, I haven't said this yet, I don't think, but art is really the first place I got to see other queer people like me. Because we've been in art for so long, you know, there's artists like Claude Cahoon, who was working pre-World War II, making amazing kind of, they wrote an autobiography where they used all three pronouns. So they used he, she, and they, writing about themselves, right? In like the 1930s. And so like portraiture, I think, is powerful, particularly for queer people, because we get to see ourselves. And I think, so I have a continued project where it's called We Are Here. And it's referencing, you know, the kind of chant, we are here, we are queer, get used to it. And so I hold like little kind of community gatherings, which I haven't been able to do for a while. And I photograph queer people with a land camera, which is like a Polaroid peel-off instant camera.
Yes. Okay.
And then
I
I
didn't know that's
use
what they were called.
Yeah, well, it's a land Polaroid camera, and the land camera is kind of like it's the cameras that you see, like tons of people and artists use them, and like from like the 50s to the 70s. It has the bellows. And so I use that camera as like a wink to Mapplethorpe, who is another queer artist, because he used that camera. And I use it to make portraits, and then I take those portraits and I print them with cyanotype. And so cyanotype, I'm gonna grab a thing, is
that's nice.
a photographic medium where it prints blue. So cyanotype means blueprint, and it was used for blueprints for many years. And it's an early photographic process that was invented in the 1830s. So I use this a lot. And if you walk down State Street, you might have seen some of my youth projects. On State Street at the Visual Art Library, we have an installation that I did the previous summer with youth from New London Youth Affairs. And so, yeah, and so cyanotype is like, it's I love this color blue. It's like the haint blue. It's like the blessed blue, like, and then this is a portrait I did of Shaw and Page. And I was actually photographing Shaw for the We Are Here project, but she brought a friend, and I said, hey, can I just photograph you two together? I just love your energy together. And so I've been printing these for an art action. So I've been printing these with text, because I am a bookbinder, and so I've been kind of, I don't know if you can see that.
Our feelings are our most gone past knowledge. Oh, Audre Lorde, yes.
And so
oh my God, yeah.
I like to integrate text and image, and that's kind of like why I think books are like so special to me, is because it's always been like books and art are always been together for me. And so this is like, I'm really proud of this because I love Audre Lorde, and I love this photograph, and I love these women. And I think the portrait is like, it's like this kind of ongoing romance that I have with people. I find people beautiful. And so like, I get to like share that. Yeah.
Do you do this? Can someone like hire you for this particular work? Like, will you do a portrait? Can you be hired out to do a portrait? Or is it, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if this was just kind of like something that you did for yourself, or.
It's both. My work is more, my professional life is more, or my professional artist kind of is more in education and teaching. And I would rather teach you how to make a portrait of yourself. I take portraits just because I love how light lays on people's skin. It's a weird photographer thing. And if I am talking to you in person, I get distracted by looking at the color of your eyes, just because that's how my brain works. And, you know, I'm fascinated by the variety of how we all look. And I love how an image of a person can tell a story, like a single image. And how when you put text with that image, then you get like another story. And it's just, for me, I guess it really is coming down to storytelling, you know? And with books, it's very obvious, but with portraits, it's a story too.
Wow.
But
Okay.
it's hard for me to talk about monetizing my work because portraits are so personal, you know, and I have done portraits for people where I've done it for their wedding or a special occasion, but I have a very serious vision, and sometimes it doesn't align with taking pictures at a wedding. I
What
don't have the
vision is
patience
that,
to be a
Allie?
wedding photographer. But I love to make portraits. So if you want like a artistic commission portrait, I could do that. Actually been talking with somebody. I do embroidery sometimes, so I can print cyanotype on fabric and then I embroider on top of that. And so
Do you have an
I do
example
kind
of
of,
that? That sounds
I
neat.
don't actually, I have this in my studio. But if you go to my website, if you don't mind
Okay.
me
And what is that?
plugging
Tell
my
us your
website,
website,
it's
please. No, you.
www.magic.press.
All
And
right. Did y'all hear that now? See all the great things that Allie is doing
I
on
better
that
go make sure
website
they're
now.
on the website.
That's important. We tell them to go to the website, and you're like, "Oh, dag, let me put it on the website." Look.
I know what, I'll have that on my to-do list tomorrow.
Wow, wow. Those were beautiful pieces, beautiful
Thank
pieces.
you.
And I know that our viewers would definitely love to get in contact with you and see about maybe having some commission work. I know personally, I'm in my head thinking as soon as we finish this interview, I'm like, okay, I need to talk to them and see what they can do for me. So, but anyway, so that's great. So that's kind of, so I know that you said you're doing like an art action on tomorrow, right? And we kind of want to keep that hush hush because we want to make sure that that's going. Will you be able to share that out like on your social media pages and after that's finished, or how are you going to?
It's, you know, it's hard to
Or,
say.
or you can't, or is that
It
is
depends.
it a kind
It
of
depends what
action
we
that
can get away
it?
with.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
because I don't know, like, you know, wheat pasting is a another artistic form of social
What is
protest.
that? Wheat paste.
So
What is
wheat
that?
paste is just, it's a glue that's made from flour. I actually, the reason I was a little late meeting with you is because I was cooking down my wheat paste and I lost track of
Okay.
time. It's like almost like making a roux. So you know, gluten and
Oh,
wheat is very sticky. So if you
okay.
cook it with water, you can make a paste. And it's the paste that, if you know, when you see like dozens of posters pasted up, it's wheat paste.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
Yeah, and so wheat pasting is when you use wheat paste to post flyers.
Okay,
And
I
it's also
got you.
used by
Okay.
street artists to you know, paste their work, because wheat paste will basically stick to anything.
Got you. Okay. Okay.
And so what I'm doing is
I,
not, yeah, I just can't talk about it too much because I just have to be careful to protect the people I'm doing it with.
okay. Yes. And then that's appreciative, and I'm sure they appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, how have you, in this pandemic, how have you had to adjust your business model, or have you had to adjust your business model based on COVID?
Well, that's so I do community arts and youth education with community arts. So basically my entire way of interacting with the community has been upended. So I'm still figuring that out, but part of what I have been finding a lot of success with is Zoom, like what we're doing right now. Is and I've been developing some hybrid workshops actually with Cultured AF. I know you did an interview with Juanita. She's a collaborator of mine. And so we've been developing kind of a hybrid model of workshop where I can mail you stuff ahead of time and you can kind of work on something and then you bring what you work with there. And I was able to do some classes at the Waterside School in Stamford recently, and wow, let me
Okay.
tell you, bless these teachers. Because 1 week of that, it was so joyful, but it really is challenging. I mean, these were littles. I was working like where I just do demos. So it's almost like I'm like a virtual Mr. Rogers. I just like kind of pop in, do a demo, and say hi. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, there was this one class that it was the end of the day, so everybody was tired. It was my last one. And I finished my demo, and these were preschoolers. And so the teacher said, does anybody have a question for Allie? And this one little girl, she just, her hand went right up and she goes, Allie, I love you. And I said, oh, I love you too, baby. I made all these books that I made for you with love. And then the whole, like the end of the class was just everybody yelling, I love you to each other. And it was the most beautiful thing.
Aw, that is
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so sweet.
And that's why
Let me
like
tell
I
you,
love doing what I do. And so
the education component.
I miss that. I miss my baby. Like I miss
Yeah.
all my kids, you know? And so I've been, doing Zoom, doing a lot more zines for sure. And I really have kind of let go of the dynamic of being a gallery focused artist. I've definitely, for me, the social justice is much more urgent. So my focus has kind of there. And I also have been making art kits, because I was thinking about
Okay.
all these kids stuck at home and maybe their only access to art materials is at school. And this is something actually, if anybody wants to contribute, I'm taking donations until November 3rd.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit later. But I collect art supplies, so colored pencils, drawing pencils, erasers, and bags and everything. And I have other people working, and we put masks in there and like a pencil roll. And so it's like little kits for young people to take home. And I also added like a sketchbook and like a little prompt, a couple little things you can use your, because I was just thinking of like, okay, I can't get to these kids in person, but I still want them to have access to art. And so like one of the biggest barriers to access to arts for marginalized community is the expense of art supplies. And so I thought, most artists I know have a drawer full of colored pencils and pens they're not using. And so I've just kind of did a call out. And in the summer, I was able to do 60 different kits, and I handed them out. I gave them to Safe Futures, and I handed them out at a community, where people, it was like something that Cultured AF did in the H studio, the Harris Place atrium. Yeah. So, that's kind of where my focus is like, I make art for myself. Like I will continue to make portraits and cyanotypes and experimenting with dyeing fabric, and just because like that's just something I do for myself. But like my art, my focus as an artist in the community is much more about supporting social justice. So I just want to like facilitate things for OutCT, for Hearing Youth Voices, for Fresh. I just want to like, I can bring skills and like knowledge, and I just want to like give it to everybody. Yeah.
So I love the idea about the art kits. So when you are teaching, is it just to young people, or do you also teach to older folks as well?
I teach to everybody. One of the things that I was doing before the pandemic that I really enjoyed, and I haven't quite transitioned this to Zoom, but I would do like parties. So like, a group of friends want to get together and they want to have like, just like a fun night, but they don't want to go to the movies. They don't want to make it like a drinking night or some, I work with a lot of sober women. I am sober myself. And so, doing art together is a really fun way to hang out with your friends. So I would host adult nights just like come and make something with me. Or somebody could say, like, I went to one, it was like for a birthday party for a young woman. She was like in her 20s, and she invited like her friends and family, and we all made cyanotypes together. And so like for my, like teaching for me is really just like a way of like connecting with people. And so like I think everybody needs art in their life. Everybody does. Like I'm an art evangelist. So if you want to learn art, I will teach anybody. I just want to I lost a mentor recently, and the way that we met is I wanted to learn herbs and she wanted to learn art. And so she began taking lessons with me, and she was in her 60s. So I'll teach anybody.
That's
If
awesome.
you want to learn, I'll teach
That's
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Listen,
Shout
I
out
love
to
the fact
Regina
that you said that you're an
Gianella.
art evangelist.
Yeah. I brought something.
You feel the way
South,
about
right?
art. Yeah, you feel the way about art as I do about therapy. I'm like, everybody needs therapy, honey. Whether you have a chief complaint or not, you just need to go see somebody, talk to somebody at least once a month. So that's how I feel about that. So how can people? I love the kits, because you're right. Like when we talk about access to resources, sometimes that's the only way that some of our little young humans have access is at the school, right? And if the school is closed, and they're not able to, how can someone donate to what you're doing for the kits for the little humans?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah. So if you go to my website, on the front page, there's a little button that you can, it's like a little, like, you know, when you click on it, kind of highlights, it's called Art Kits. And that link is going to take you to a Google form that's going to have like a list of what we actually need. That will connect you to me. So I can do, if you are not able to leave the house because of COVID concerns, I do pickups on Monday and Friday. So I'll come to your house as long as like you're around the shoreline. And I'll come pick it up from your front porch. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can drop it off at the Visual Art Library. That is on State Street, in the atrium at 165 State Street, which is where Magik Press is as well. It's in that same big building. And if you're interested, and if you actually have a group of kids that you want to get these kits to, that's where you can contact me through there as well. And if you're an adult, like these kits, I'm making them for kids, so it is a youth-centered project, but some adults took the last batch too, because adults need access to art. So I kind of, it's all ages, but it is kind of, I always say I'm youth-centered, but like not youth-centric, right?
Yes. Okay. So give us your website. And all the ways that we can contact you, so our viewers can know, like what your website is, your social media. Tell us again your address. Tell us all the ways that we can reach you, honey, so that we can make sure that our viewers know they can come and get all the things art, right? Art/activism, AA, a different AA.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that. That's cute. Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with me is through my website, because my website will connect you to my social media as well. So my website is www.magik.press. And I also am on Instagram at Magik_press. And that, if you want to see my work and what I'm working on right now, that's like, I post a lot to Instagram. I'm also an early adopter. So there's like over 11,000 images going all the way back to when I lived in Tokyo. So there's really cool street art there. And then if you want a spicier take, I am also on Twitter at love_and_artist. But it is Twitter, so it's the Wild West, so be warned. I use block and mute judiciously.
buyer beware, right? So that
But
just
you know
so
what?
you
If you're
know, all right.
interested in like queer theory and art education and social justice theory, and that's where I put a lot of resources that I read when I do reading. I put
Okay.
them on Twitter,
Okay.
but I also do a lot of like shit posting where it's just like crazy cat memes. You know, it's all.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much, Ali, for taking the time to talk to me as well as allow our viewers into your space, into your life, into your work, into your passion. And y'all heard it here. Art and activism all together, right? That's how it shows up. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and I cannot wait for our viewers to see this. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.